The warning came too late. Sophia Reyes felt her heel catch on the uneven marble tile of Cafe Serendipity's floor, and in that terrible suspended moment, she knew what would happen next. The tray tilted, the porcelain cups slid, and before she could correct her balance, steaming coffee launched into the air in a perfect arc. Time slowed cruelly as the dark liquid descended upon its unsuspecting target, a distinguished man in an immaculate white shirt and tailored charcoal suit who had been quietly reviewing documents in the corner booth. The impact was spectacular. Coffee splashed across his chest, immediately transforming pristine white fabric into a spreading Rorschach of rich brown. Droplets spattered important-looking papers. A single stream traced the edge of his laptop. The entire cafe fell silent. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Silverware froze halfway to mouths. All eyes turned to witness Sophia's professional catastrophe. "I'm so terribly sorry," she gasped, her voice barely audible as heat rushed to her cheeks. Her trembling fingers fumbled for napkins in her apron pocket. 6 months of flawless service at the city's most prestigious cafe, ruined in an instant. The stranger looked down at himself with an unreadable expression, his body perfectly still as though processing what had just occurred. When he finally raised his gaze to meet hers, Sophia braced for the eruption she deserved. "Mr. Blackwood." Sophia turned to see Marcus, the cafe manager, rushing toward them, his face ashen. "Sir, I had no idea you were coming today. I would have prepared your usual private room." The name hit Sophia like a physical blow. Gabriel Blackwood, the reclusive billionaire whose investment firm had acquired the cafe chain 3 months ago. The man whose signature appeared at the bottom of her paychecks. "It's quite all right, Marcus," Mr. Blackwood said, his voice unexpectedly rich and measured, like warm honey poured over gravel. "Accidents happen." Part 2, the unexpected proposition. Mr. Blackwood turned his full attention to Sophia, studying her with eyes the color of aged whiskey. "Those napkins might be more effective if applied to the actual spill," he observed, with what might have been the ghost of amusement in his tone. "Yes, of course," Sophia stammered, stepping forward tentatively. Her hands shook as she began dabbing at his ruined shirt, acutely aware of the expensive fabric beneath her fingers and the solid presence of the man wearing it. "Here, allow me," he said, gently taking the napkins from her. Their fingers brushed, an innocent collision of skin that sent an unexpected current through her veins. For a fraction of a second, Sophia forgot her mortification as their eyes locked. "You have a name?" he asked, dabbing ineffectually at the spreading stain. "Sophia Reyes, sir," she replied, her voice steadier than she expected. "Well, Sophia Reyes," Mr. Blackwood said, folding the soiled napkin carefully. "How would you feel about joining me for lunch tomorrow? I'd like to hear your thoughts on this establishment." Sophia blinked, certain she had misheard. "My thoughts?" "Yes. I find that frontline staff often have the most valuable insights, yet they're rarely consulted. I'm particularly interested in your perspective." "I would be honored, Mr. Blackwood." "Gabriel," he corrected. 1 o'clock, then. I'll send a car." As he gathered his coffee-stained documents and departed, Sophia stood motionless in the gradually resuming buzz of cafe activity. What had just happened? And why did the brief touch of his fingers against her still resonate through her body like the lingering vibration of a perfectly struck bell? Part 3, the transformation. The restaurant wasn't what Sophia expected. No gleaming skyscraper or exclusive club, but rather a small, intimate bistro in a historic building downtown. Over plates of exquisite food that Sophia was too nervous to fully appreciate, Gabriel outlined his unconventional approach to business. "Spreadsheets tell only half the story," he explained, his intensity evident in how he leaned forward. "I'm building establishments where genuine connection matters as much as the bottom line." And what does spilling coffee on you have to do with that? Sophia asked, finally finding her voice. Everything. His eyes held hers. Your first instinct wasn't to protect yourself or assign blame. It was genuine concern for me, a complete stranger. That quality can't be trained or manufactured. Gabriel placed a folder between them. I'm assembling a team to revolutionize my hospitality holdings. People with intuition and authenticity. Sophia stared at him. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you an opportunity. 1 week later, Sophia signed a contract as Director of Guest Experience with a salary 4 times her waitress wages. Her phone buzzed with a text from Gabriel. Qualifications are overrated. Instinct is rare. Gabriel's corporate headquarters occupied the top floors of a downtown building, all glass and steel and intimidating elegance. The boardroom can smell uncertainty, Gabriel advised during her first week, moments before she presented her initial assessment to his executive team. Remember why you're here. Sophia took a deep breath and faced the skeptical executives. Gentlemen, she began, her voice steady, your restaurants have lovely decor, excellent locations, and skilled chefs. What they lack is a soul. Part 4, the blossoming connection. She's completely transformed how we train front-of-house staff. Sophia overheard Gabriel telling a potential investor 3 months later. Customer satisfaction is up 27%. As fall turned to winter, Sophia found herself increasingly aware of Gabriel's presence. The way he rubbed his temple when concentrating, how his formal facade slipped when truly engaged in conversation, the rare, genuine laugh that transformed his serious features. Their late-night strategy sessions blurred professional boundaries as they shared personal stories between business discussions. She learned about his difficult childhood, his early business failures, his distrust of people attracted to his wealth rather than his vision. Why did you really hire me? Sophia asked one evening as they reviewed designs for a new location. The truth. Gabriel's expression became thoughtful. Because you saw me. What does that mean? Most people see the billionaire, the businessman, the reputation. You just saw a person who needed napkins after a coffee spill. The company holiday party was a lavish affair at Gabriel's penthouse. Sophia wore a simple red dress that she'd splurged on with her new salary. You look lovely, Gabriel said when she arrived, his normally controlled expression momentarily unguarded. As the party wound down, they found themselves alone on the balcony overlooking the city lights. Do you remember that first day? Gabriel asked, when you spilled coffee all over my best suit. Sophia laughed. How could I forget? I was certain my career was over. I knew in that moment you were different. His voice had softened. Your genuine concern, your complete lack of calculation, it was refreshing. When he took her hand, the contact was electric, reminiscent of that first accidental touch in the cafe, but deliberate now, meaningful. Part 5, the complication. The new year brought a profile in Business Weekly, Gabriel Blackwood's hospitality revolution. The article praised his innovative approach and mentioned Sophia as his right hand and rumored romantic interest. The executive team's subtle change in behavior toward her was immediate. Accomplishments previously acknowledged were now attributed to her special relationship with the boss. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Sophia said, tossing the magazine onto Gabriel's desk. Everything I've worked for, questioned because of whatever this is between us. Gabriel's expression darkened. You've earned your position through merit alone. That doesn't matter if no one believes it, Sophia countered. I need to be taken seriously. 3 weeks of strictly professional interaction followed. Gabriel even took a business trip to Europe, putting literal distance between them. Sophia threw herself into launching a new training program. Working 16-hour days to prove her worth had nothing to do with Gabriel's attention. When he returned, The careful space between them felt like a physical presence, a third entity in every meeting and conversation. "Sophia," he asked as she turned to leave his office after a weekly update. She paused at the door. "Are you happy?" Such a simple question, yet it pierced through the careful barriers she'd constructed. "I'm successful," she answered carefully. "That's not what I asked." Part 6. The Surrender. Sophia stood on the rooftop garden of the newest Blackwood hospitality property, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. A year had passed since that fateful coffee spill, a year of transformation, challenge, and growth. The rooftop door opened behind her, and she didn't need to turn to know who had joined her. "Beautiful view," Gabriel said, coming to stand beside her at the railing. "I was just thinking about how much has changed in a year," Sophia replied. "For the company or for us?" "Both," she admitted. "I never expected any of this." "Nor did I," Gabriel confessed. "I built an empire by maintaining control and distance. Then you quite literally crashed into my life with a cup of coffee, and everything changed." When Sophia finally turned to face him, she saw not the billionaire or the boss, but simply the man, complicated, guarded, and looking at her with an openness that took her breath away. "We've been circling each other for months," she said softly. "Because you were right about the complications," he acknowledged. "Your career matters. Your independence matters. And us?" Sophia asked, finally voicing the question that had lingered unspoken between them. "That's your decision," Gabriel replied. "I know what I want, Sophia. I've known since that first day, but you're the one who had coffee spilled on your future." Sophia smiled at his metaphor. "Actually," she corrected, "I spilled coffee on a stranger and found my future instead." His lips found hers in a kiss that felt like coming home and embarking on an adventure all at once. The sensation was dizzying, a year of denied attraction crystallizing into this single perfect moment as the sunset painted them in golden light. "Stay with me tonight," Gabriel whispered against her hair. Sophia pulled back slightly to meet his gaze. "Are you sure? Once we cross this line." "I've never been more certain of anything," he answered, his eyes reflecting the sincerity of his words. Part 7. The Intimacy. Gabriel's penthouse was a study in understated elegance, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the city skyline, minimalist furniture in warm tones, and art pieces that spoke of carefully cultivated taste. Yet Sophia barely noticed these details as she followed him through the space, her hand entwined with his. The connection between them had transformed from a spark to a steady flame. Each touch, his fingers brushing hers as he handed her a glass of wine, her hand resting on his arm as they stood by the window, carried the weight of months of restraint. "Are you nervous?" Gabriel asked, his voice gentle as he tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "A little," Sophia admitted. "This changes everything." "It already changed a year ago," he replied. "We're just finally acknowledging it." When he kissed her again, it was with unhurried tenderness. His hands traced the curve of her waist with reverent patience, as though memorizing her. Sophia's fingers found the buttons of his shirt, each one a threshold crossed. The city lights cast muted patterns across the bedroom as clothing gave way to skin, as professional distance dissolved into intimate discovery. Gabriel's touch was both gentle and assured, drawing responses from Sophia she never knew herself capable of. Each caress was a conversation, each kiss a promise. They moved together in a dance as old as time yet entirely new to them, a symphony of whispered names, shared breaths, and the delicate percussion of hearts beating in accelerating rhythm. Sophia lost herself in the sensation of being both cherished and desired, of strength yielding to tenderness. In the darkness, they found each other completely, barriers falling away like autumn leaves, leaving only the essential truth of their connection. Their bodies spoke a language more honest than words, writing promises on skin with fingertips and lips. When they finally lay entangled in Egyptian cotton sheets, breathless and transformed, Sophia rested her head against Gabriel's chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat gradually slowing to its natural pace. "I never expected this," she whispered. "Any of it." Gabriel's fingers traced lazy patterns along her spine. "I believe the best things in life are rarely planned," he replied. "They happen when you're busy making other arrangements, or when someone spills coffee on you." Sophia laughed softly against his skin. "You're never going to let me forget that, are you?" "Never," he promised, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "It's our origin story." Part 8. The morning after. Dawn painted the bedroom in soft hues of pink and gold as Sophia awoke in Gabriel's arms. For a moment, she wondered if it had all been a dream. The coffee spill, the job offer, the year of transformation, and finally, this night. But the warmth of his body against hers was undeniably real. Her fingers traced the contours of his face, memorizing him in this unguarded moment of sleep. As though sensing her gaze, Gabriel's eyes opened, dark and intense even in the early morning light. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Good morning," Sophia replied, suddenly shy despite the intimacy they'd shared. Gabriel seemed to sense her momentary uncertainty. "Any regrets?" he asked, his fingers gently tilting her chin up to meet his eyes. Sophia considered the question seriously. "About last night?" "None." She paused. "About the complications we'll face. Maybe a few concerns. We'll figure it out," Gabriel promised. "Together." He pressed a gentle kiss to her lips. "I don't want to hide this, Sophia. I want to face whatever comes openly." Sophia nodded, touched by his certainty. "No hiding," she agreed, "but no favoritism either. I've worked too hard to have my accomplishments attributed to anything but merit." "Agreed," Gabriel said, pulling her closer. "Although I should warn you, I may have a bias toward hiring clumsy waitresses in the future. They've proven to be excellent investments." Sophia laughed, swatting his chest playfully. "I wasn't clumsy. That tile was uneven." "Of course it was," he replied, his expression serious though his eyes sparkled with humor. "I've since had that tile bronzed and mounted in my office. The tile that changed everything." Part 9. The bold decision. 6 months later, Sophia stood before the board of directors, her presentation on international expansion complete. The questions had been tough but fair, with no hint of the skepticism she'd once faced. As the meeting adjourned, Gabriel approached, maintaining a professional distance despite the intimate glance they shared. Their relationship was now an open secret within the company, but they had both worked hard to ensure clear boundaries between their personal and professional lives. "Brilliant presentation," he said, his voice carrying just the right note of professional admiration. "The Tokyo proposal is particularly innovative." "Thank you," Sophia replied, equally formal. "I learned from the best." Later, as they shared dinner in the privacy of what had become their home, Gabriel reached across the table to take her hand. "I've been thinking," he said, his expression uncharacteristically hesitant, "about us, about the future." Sophia felt her heart quicken. "What about it?" "I've spent my life building a business empire," Gabriel said, focusing on profits and expansion. "But this past year, with you, has shown me what truly matters. Connection, authenticity, love." He withdrew a small velvet box from his pocket. "I don't want to be just your boss or your partner. I want to be your husband, Sophia. If you'll have me." Sophia stared at the elegant solitaire diamond. "You're proposing?" "I'm proposing a merger," Gabriel said with a smile. "One where both parties benefit equally." Sophia laughed, tears of joy gathering in her eyes. "Very romantic, Mr. Blackwood, using business terminology for a marriage proposal." "Is that a yes?" he asked, his confident facade momentarily faltering. Sophia reached across the table to cradle his face in her hands. It's a yes. 1,000 times yes. Part 10. The Full Circle. 1 year later, Cafe Serendipity hosted a private event. The polished marble floors gleamed under the soft lighting as Sophia and Gabriel stood before their closest friends and family. "I thought it fitting," Gabriel said, raising a glass of champagne, "to celebrate our first anniversary in the very spot where it all began." Sophia laughed, her eyes bright with happiness, though perhaps with less coffee on your shirt this time. The cafe had been transformed into an intimate wedding reception venue, with flowers cascading from the ceiling and candles casting a warm glow across the tables. The infamous tile